If you're just getting started in JavaScript, you might find the multitude of frameworks available confusing. Do you need to use React.js, Angular, Vue, or something like jQuery? Well, if you're developing something simple, you don't need to use any. In this tutorial, we're going to write a simple web page that pulls news articles from the Hacker News API and renders them. We are going to use plain JavaScript or vanilla JavaScript, so no frameworks. Let's get started. We're going to create a new folder. It's JS API. I'm going to use Visual Studio Code for writing the code. It's a free tool from Microsoft that you can download it and use. It's a pretty good code editor. All right, so I'm going to call this file index HTML. Write a basic HTML title, call API, body, just simple text. Make sure it works. So as we can see, it worked. We don't need this anymore. Okay, now in the body, we're going to have a button that we are pressing for calling the API, and a div where we will place the results. Let's see. We need to give it an ID. We will use this ID for changing the contents in JavaScript. Let's see it. So the layout is not great, but that's not the purpose of this tutorial. We have the button. Okay, now we will start adding the JavaScript. So we're going to make a function called API that will be called when we press the button. So on click, we call the function. And inside the function, for now, we're just gonna log a message to the console. Let's see, the button was clicked. Okay. So we will open the developer console in more tools, developer tools, and in here you need to select console. So now when we press the button, we should see the message printed. Oh, okay, we need to refresh every time we make a change. Okay, the button was clicked. Next, we are going to make the call to the API. So the API is this one, https hn, stands for hackernews.algolia.com, API v1 search. If we send a request, this is the response we are receiving. It's a JSON response. There's this section called hits and a list of news articles. We can see their titles, author, the original URL. And yeah, what we're going to do next, we're going to make this call and display the news titles in the list. Okay. So for making the API call, we are going to use the fetch API, which is a function in JavaScript. MDN stands for Mozilla Developer Network. It's a great resource for documentation. So if we go in here, there's details about usage, how to use it, and at the bottom you will see this table which shows the browser that the function is compatible with. The only browser it has problems with is Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer was discontinued by Microsoft, but some users might still have it. If you want to solve it for Internet Explorer, you will need to use a library like Axios JavaScript or maybe jQuery JavaScript. Okay. So the way we use it is we call fetch on the URL. And we can see that it returns a promise for a response. So promise, it's a result that is not yet ready. So the function kind of promises that the result will be there in some amount of time. It can be like a second, 2 seconds, 100 milliseconds, whatever. So what we can do with the promise is either wait until it is ready or make transformations on it. So the logic would be something like, okay, the result is not yet ready, but when it is ready, I want to transform it with this function. So for doing that, we would use the then method. So when the promise will be ready, then we do this. So the result, the idea will be to transform the result. So now we have a promise of a transform promise. In our case, we can the transformation we will do for now is just printed. So let's see, console log result. Actually, response is the correct, better name for this object. Okay. We will see we received an actual response. So as we noticed, this response is a JSON, so we will need to parse it from JSON. And the response object has a method called JSON, which returns a promise that results with the result of parsing the response as a JSON. So now we will transform it with JSON. So this method JSON, it doesn't return the actual JSON, but a promise of a JSON. Now here we are chaining two promises. So we have a promise which is the initial fetch, and the transformation returns another promise. This is called promise chaining. So what the Laya JavaScript will do is it's going to wait for this one to finish, then it's going to apply this transformation, and it's going to wait for this one to finish, and then we are going to make the actual the final transformation. So here we will just log the response, and this should be what we saw on Postman. Yeah. So in that section hits, we actually see the news articles with the titles. You will see that some news articles have a null title, and we're just going to skip them. Okay. Now we'll try to so response.hits for each iterate all the for all the hits and log the title. So element that title. Okay, let's check if it works. Okay, good. Yeah, we need to skip the ones with null titles. So if element dot title. Now we're going to create a list, an unordered list. So in UL, we're going to do some DOM manipulation right now. So we're going to create element UL. This will hold all the items. List. And now we're going to create elements for the news articles. So item equals list item append child, and create a text node, and in here we're going to have the title. Okay. And oh yes, they all need to be wrapped into a block. So now we need to append this item to the list. Item. Yeah. And once we created once we appended all the articles, we need to take this results. We need to place the list in this results div. So we're going to find the element in the DOM. Find I think it's called get element by ID results, replace with list. So now if we refresh the page, as we call it, okay, so we see the actual list. Further improvements, we can add a loading indicator in here while the call is being made, and of course these can be styled better with CSS, but that's the topic for a different tutorial. So now we're just going to do the loading indicator, results inner HTML equals loading . Okay. So we see it's loading, and now we see the results. This is the end of the tutorial. I will link the source code in the description below. You can also find my website there in case you need to hire a software freelancer. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Thanks. See you next time.